Hello, welcome to another Looney Tunes review video. If you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe to follow my journey to review all 1000 classic Looney Tunes shorts, and give this video a like as well. So this is a review for Mighty Hunters, released in 1940. It's the 275th in the series, and it's directed by Chuck Jones. There's currently no official restoration for this short at the time of this recording at least, which is a shame because this one will look amazing restored, and I'll go through why in a moment because this one has a very unusual history compared to the shorts released around this time. In case you haven't seen this one, it's under copyright, can't show you the full thing here on YouTube, otherwise the video would just get blocked. But in case you haven't seen it, a bunch of Native American children prepare for hunting, and once they're all set up, they end up getting in all sorts of different situations involving a whole bunch of animals like squirrels and bears. So not really much to it by way of story. First thing you're going to see is the re-edit of the original commentary I did with my good friend Austin Kelly, where we go through the history of this short. I had to take that down because again, the short is under copyright. So after that, because we didn't go through the short shot by shot to discuss what works, what doesn't, I'll be doing that. So grab some popcorn and enjoy. But joining me today is my good friend Austin Kelly, who's going to give us a lot of info on this one. Say hi.
Hi, I'm here to talk about this cartoon that has more of an interesting production history than it is actually entertaining, which tells you a lot about how good the cartoon actually is. For some reason, in Chuck's cartoons, the Inky cartoons and this cartoon, he always claimed that he wasn't trying to be racist, and the stereotypes were just there. They weren't necessarily stereotypes, they were just characters that weren't, white characters, It wasn't anything that he was purposely trying to be offensive with.
I do like the idea here, where you got the big shadows, and of course we see that these cute little kids here. The only voice we actually hear in this entire cartoon is just a narrator at the start and at the end, which, according to my research, is Shepard Strudwick does that.
Yeah, this one's interesting. You'll note on the title card, someone named James Swinnerton is credited with Canyon Kitties, which was featured in Good Housekeeping. James Swinnerton drew the Canyon Kitties feature in the Good Housekeeping magazine, and in 1939, Leon Schlesinger, the producer of these cartoons, signed a contract for a series of Canyon cartoons with Swinnerton's involvement and Chuck Jones directing all of them. It was kind of a grander cartoon, even just a Merry Melody, than usual. It got a full page of a color ad in the New York Journal American, and of course that big title card at the beginning. Swinnerton himself was actually involved in publicity art and doing the backgrounds. And Carl Stalling actually conducted some actual Indians that played some canyon drums for the soundtrack of this cartoon. If you want to see the footage of Stalling conducting those Indians, you can find it on the Looney Tunes Golden Collection Volume 6 in the Leon Schlesinger's 1939 Christmas Party gag reel. As far as I know, there weren't any more that were made, and the series was originally canceled because, the theatergoers didn't really like it. It was nothing special, and can I blame them? No, this is nothing really special. I mean, it's a gorgeous cartoon, layout-wise and background-wise, but other than that, it's got some nice animation, but there's nothing really special to it.
But it's definitely slow. Really slow.
Well, then again, so are all the Chuck cartoons of the day. They all kind of fall victim to the same things. In the end, at least we can appreciate these for their, visuals.
This would definitely looks like they put, I guess, more effort into this. I mean, not that they weren't putting any effort or anything, but it's like they went above and beyond. But
yeah, they kind of did, and it would even look the backgrounds, I'm pretty sure, were done with oils instead of whatever they typically painted the backgrounds with. So I'm sure they were gorgeous.
Maybe watercolor.
Yeah, I think they typically did watercolor, something like that. But oh my gosh, they're done with oils here, and they even in this unrestored print, it's gorgeous. But I just can only hope that someday, somehow, we see this restored. I want to point out that it's kind of sad because they were rushing and they did all this work on this cartoon, but no one really talks about it and no one really enjoyed it. Of course, it was canceled originally because it just wasn't received well by anyone. No one really liked it. The cartoon, they were speeding and they were rushing to finish it. It was less than 2 weeks from the time they shot the final cell to the time that Leon Schlesinger was headed for New York with the one of the prints of the cartoons. So, for all their effort, this is really not a great cartoon. It's kind of sad because think about what they could have done with all that other time that they spent working on this and getting it out, you know?
So that was the original edit of the commentary where, again, we went through the origins of this short, which really is quite fascinating. And they seemingly put so much time and effort into this one short, and it ended up being nothing. And it's such an obscure footnote now that I knew nothing about it, and I'm sure a lot of you watching it knew nothing about this. It's really fascinating. But what's also fascinating is that this one is a Blue Ribbon reissue, hence you saw the Blue Ribbon in the beginning, but it actually kept the original title cards, because any shorts that were reissued before a certain year, they would remove the title cards completely. But then after a certain year, they would put Blue Ribbon titles, but then keep the titles. But this one was an exception. So I'm guessing with this one, it's just due to the rights with the author of the comic strip that this is adapting, that they sort of had to keep it on there. That's just a guess. But if you think there's another reason, definitely let me know in the comments. But let's take a look at this short from start to finish and see what works, what doesn't, and why this didn't actually become a thing like it was meant to, which was, of course, a whole series of shorts involving these Native American children. So it starts off beautifully. Now, even in this faded print that I'm using for this review, it's interesting to see how different this looks, because the backgrounds, as mentioned in the commentary, they were done in oils instead of watercolors, which were a lot cheaper. In fact, around this time, Disney had stopped using watercolors and they were starting to use oils because with the success of Snow White, they went a bit more lavish with their production values. So that's why Snow White and Pinocchio look different in terms of their backgrounds, because they were using oil paints and they had moved on. But oils would have been really expensive had they continued to make this series. So I guess that's maybe one of the reasons why they didn't bother continuing this series. Now, it's a very slow start, but my goodness, I love how the sun is slowly rising and it's setting up the mood for the type of short that this is. And a common theme with this, even if you don't like this short, I'm pretty sure just about every one of you will agree that this would look absolutely stunning restored, and that the backgrounds, there was a lot of care taken in them, which apparently were done by the author of the comic strip himself. So go figure. And I love how, as we get into the cave, I love the music. And it just seems like Starling took extra care here to try and be as authentic as possible. In the track, we already mentioned that he actually had a Native American come in and beat the drum and all that stuff. So it seems like that they really put a lot of the eggs in this basket, didn't they? They just decided, this is going to be the huge next big thing. And there's definitely an interesting comparison to what Disney did later on, which I'll point out once I go through the short. But look at the dancing and look at the lighting in this scene. Clearly at this point, Chuck was more about being quote unquote more Disney, and this short is no exception. But he definitely took a lot of time and care in making sure that at least this short looks really good. And I'm guessing that the dancers here were rotoscoped. It just looks like it's too smooth to be otherwise, I think. But if you think otherwise, definitely let me know in the comments. But we see that this is kind of like a gag where we reveal that these are actually kids. At this point, I'm not sure where the parents are because I'm not familiar with the comic strip, but you do see him somewhat, and I'll let you know once we do. So we get some cute bits here. You got the dog and the young girls playing drums and all that. And as the music builds up in tempo, they're all preparing for this hunt. And there's even a cute bit with the baby hitting a dog. Is that supposed to be a dog? It looks kind of weird. Yeah, very bizarre looking dog thing, but anyway, whatever. So yeah, it gets faster and faster, builds to crescendo, and one child then hits the drum too much and falls in. So it's like one of those cute jokes, or the kind of jokes that people think that Disney did all the time, when in fact, a lot of the gags they did, yeah, a lot of it was cutesy, but the more cute stuff, I would argue, came much more later, in the later 40s and early 50s, but anyway. So we do see that there's an adult, and it's just an arm. So this is kind of like Peanuts 10 years prior to its debut. And, in Peanuts, as you all know, in the actual animated shorts, usually illustrated by trombone sounds and that sort of stuff. And the parents always referred to in the comic strip, so they do exist. And here they do exist, but it's just a world where they are kind of seen, but not seen at all. We're just focusing on these children. So the children, they go out hunting, and you got a minor gag with the drum. I mean, it's not really ha-ha funny, but whatever, it's cute enough. When watching this short, I just watch it for what it is, and I'm not going to expect, timing in the vein of the Roadrunner shorts or anything like that. And I think if you go in with that expectation, you'll enjoy it a little bit more, but it's definitely not going to be a go-to short, I can tell you that. And really, not much is happening as they're heading out to the hunt. A lot of that part could have been cut, like the whole scene of the child really going off the cliff. that could have been cut. I know that kind of sets it up where the child is like, oh, but the rest of my hunting party's gone. What am I going to do? Oh, there's a random donkey and I'm just going to now decide to try and ride it. And we now got this whole bit of the child trying to ride the donkey. I mean, it's well animated, especially with all the weight, and Jones even adds a little bit of speed in the wind-up run that you see, but the gag falls flat. I do like the child's reaction of being sat on, even though his bones would be probably crushed, but whatever, we move on, right? So now we see two other kids looking for something to hunt, and they see a squirrel. The squirrel breaks the fourth wall and gulps, which again, I think that's what people think Disney did all the time when they really didn't. But anyway, but I do like there was one drawing of the squirrel with the sheepish grin, and that's the sort of thing that Chuck would end up using a lot more as he starts to get more and more funny in his shorts. So, this bit's slow once again, but at least I can admire the animation here, and there really isn't much of a punchline here. The squirrel's on an arrow, the arrow gets shot, and he realizes he's okay and just runs off, so not really anything here. So, whatever, we move on, we don't see the squirrel ever again. We're back to the donkey, so we're now going to think, oh yeah, this is going to set up some sort of a rule of three, isn't it? Kind of does, but anyway. So the donkey now eats cactus, and the child now runs up to the donkey's back, and the donkey sits once again, and we get some personality animation between the donkey and the child, but nothing that's actually funnier. I mean, as I mentioned, Disney had a lot more funnier gags for these type of shorts, so I don't know what they were thinking here, but anyway. So now we see that, so now we're back to that child that was forced to have his sibling with him, which I guess sets up some sort of personality conflict, just barely, I guess, but anyway. So we see this bear, and the whole shtick with this bear is that he sees this candy cane and seems to want to eat this candy cane, even at the risk of his own life later on too, which is interesting. So the bear even breaks the fourth wall to drool over it. It's like, yep, I'm going to go after that candy stick. Sure. Okay, fine. But then we cut back to the donkey, and this child really wants to ride this donkey, and we see some speed again. But then the donkey just stands up and the child falls over. The kid's resilient, I'll give it that, but we actually don't see this donkey again until the supposed punchline later on. But anyway, so we're back to the toddler and the bear again, and there's some nice personality animation here again of the toddler not wanting to give the candy back to the bear. You even see in a very brief shot a small tear coming from the bear when the bear is actually hit with that stick, but anyway, sure, why not? Why not? Then we're back to the two bow and arrow kids, and they meet up with the kid leading the bear. So we get this bit that takes a lot longer than it should, with that growing realization that, uh-oh, there is a bear behind you. No, there's nothing behind me. No, really, look behind you. That kind of scene, which takes a while. Now, okay, there is one drawing which I thought was hilarious, but probably not for the reasons you think. So there's one fat bear drawing where it just looks all like, like a gasp kind of drawing. I think that drawing's hilarious. In fact, that's the point of view of my scale before I started my weight loss journey. That was my scale looking at me. And that's my face realizing that I was too fat at the time. So, at least it's got something in this short that I thought was funny. But anyway. So yeah, it takes a while and the child finally sees the bear is behind and they're back towards the cliff. But hey, we got this nice downward shot of the canyon, which looks nice. So again, this will look great restored. And now the four kids are hanging on for dear life. And who's going to help them? You'd think maybe that other kid with the donkey, there would be some sort of a payoff with that, rescuing the kids or something. But no, that doesn't happen. We get a butt gag. One of the child's pants comes off, which I never thought I'd be saying in one of these commentaries. But anyway, whatever, oh, that's what happens here. I guess that's supposed to be cute. Haha, look at the cute little kid's butt. Sure. Okay, fine. Okay. But anyway. But this bear really wants that candy stick, doesn't he? And he even grabs it and falls, but not to his death. He's in the tree eating his candy, he's all happy, and he'll presumably die because now he's just stuck there and probably can't get out of it. So at least his last meal's a good one, I suppose. So then the four climb up and run back home against the beautiful sunset that slowly changes, which again, I know I've said it many times, the backgrounds are amazing here. And the four are in bed sleeping as the narrator finishes off the story about these hunters and their very big day. And we get a payoff with the donkey. Kinda, sorta. I guess that's supposed to be the punchline with it, whatever. Alright, so why didn't this succeed? I know it should be obvious, but I'm going to mention a few observations here about it. Now, watching this, you can't expect that Jones at this point is going to be the Jones later on. This is the Jones that was still doing the Sniffles shorts. So if you watch it with that in mind, it can be at least forgiving with some of the gags not being as sharp as they would become later on. But first of all, yeah, the pacing in this one is very slow, very slow. It makes the Sniffles shorts look like Roadrunner shorts in terms of pacing. That's one big failure here. It's an 8.5 minute short, but this one could have easily been 7, or even less for that matter, and maybe add a few faster paced gags. But aside from all of that though, the biggest problem I see and why the audiences at the time wouldn't have been as engaged is that these characters don't have distinct personalities. Nothing stands out about them except that they're cute and nothing more. Now again, I'm going to use Peanuts as an example, which came out 10 years after this. It has the similar idea where it's all about the point of view of the kids and they're going through their day-to-day life and all that stuff, right? But they each have a distinct personality. You know Charlie Brown, you know Pepper Patty, you know Snoopy, you know Linus and all that. Everyone's got their own distinct personalities, but here they're all just interchangeable kids and nothing more. That's the biggest failure, I think. And even if Freeze Freeling or Tex Avery did this, it would have still failed. I would imagine though if Tex Avery did this one, he would have given each of the characters personalities, but then it probably would have strayed too far from the strip and the creator may not have liked that. I don't know. But anyway, this is just my own opinions on it. But it's an absolute shame because this actually looks good, as I've mentioned numerous times already, and again, a lot of effort went into this one, and this would have been more expensive than the usual short because of the oil paints, and of course payments for adapting and then ongoing work. They would have had to pay for the rights and that sort of thing, but yeah, this one just went with the thud, and it's kind of ironic that later on in the 1940s, a quote-unquote regular short comes out, it introduces a certain rabbit into the world, and that's the one that becomes huge, as opposed to what was planned for this as a series. And the thing I mentioned before about Disney, a great comparison was in the 90s, where Disney bet the horse on Pocahontas being the bigger movie, that had the better budget, the higher production values. That was the Oscar bait, that was the thing that was going to be the huge thing, and Lion King was the B movie, the other movie. What happened? The opposite, the opposite. So there's that. Look, this gets 6 out of 10. I do like the backgrounds, and I do like a lot of the personality animation in this one, and if you watch it for that, it's fine. But yeah, it's easy to see why this failed. But that will do it for this one, and I certainly hope you learned something new about a very obscure chapter in Looney Tunes history. But until next time, guys, take care.
Is again at peace. Good night, O mighty warriors.